So, for the sake of the story, let's call this guy Grayson. Now, Grayson is one of my silent guy watchers. Shout out to y'all. Most of my watchers are girls, but I fuck with y'all too. Wait, so he's a silent watcher. He loves my content. And this just happened to him last week, and he was like, yo, I gotta tell Blizzy. And this story's from New York. So Grayson lives in Brooklyn. Shout out to Brooklyn. If I have any followers that live in Brooklyn, holla at your girl. You know, invite me some places. Wait, so y'all know how we just had that big ass snowstorm? Snow is like super ridiculous. Y'all know. So he's fucking with this Jamaican shorty, right? And shorty seemed to like her. I mean, like him way more than he likes her. Mind you, like she ran up on him, all that. He likes her too. Like he's attracted to her, but he just... Listen. Wait, so right before the snowstorm, he had tried to like distance himself from shorty because he like, I fuck with you, but like, you know, like I don't want no relationships like you. Like I'm chilling. So he started to distance himself or whatever. So then they announced the snowstorm, and shorty calls him like, yo, you want to be snowed in together? And he like, nah, I'm cool. Like I'm chilling. He like, are you sure? Like I'm getting a hotel. I'm gonna get some food. Like what hotel you want? Like, you know? And you know, Grayson being... I call him Grayson, right? Grayson being the easy man that he is, he like, I'm gonna pull up. So boom, they get a hotel and they get snowed in together. She did get, like, she booked the hotel for like 2 nights. She did bring groceries, like she cooked and all that. So it was actually a pretty good time. He had a good time until the last night that they're supposed to spend at the hotel. Sleeping together, you know, they do what they do, and they go to sleep. And so he wakes up in the middle of the night, just thirsty. So he gets up, looks at his phone, 3 a.m. He don't really think too much of it, but he watches me, so he like, that was like a mental note. He goes, he gets some water, and he come back to the room. And as he's laying down, he just starts smelling something. Now, y'all should know, Grayson's nose, he has the nose of a freaking wolf. Things that he smells, other people don't smell. So it's this slight little smell that's just like bothering his nose. And he's like, what is that smell? Like, where's it coming from? Starts like scanning the room with his nose, like, what is that smell? And it feels like every time he's close to it, it goes away, but he's so close to it. Ultimately, he decided, I'm gonna just go back to bed, but the smell just keeps bothering him. So he's like standing in the room, literally like this. He's standing in the room. This is how he explained it to me. He sent a voice message. Standing in the room, he's like, yo, what the hell is that smell? Like, that's just stressing me out. And then he feels something greasy in the back of his head. And he looks at his hand and it's greasy. But also his hand is smelling like that smell. So he goes like, that's the smell I've been smelling. So he rubs the back of his head again and it's in the back of his head. He's like, what the fuck is that? And it's oily. He started looking on the bed like, what is on the bed that got this oil? Like, and so he started checking her too. Only for him to realize she has a cross in the back of her head with said oil. Now again, he watches me. So his heart drops. He knows that shorty is Jamaican. Shorty had expressed spiritual stuff before, but he never really like she never said nothing crazy. But she's definitely into spiritual stuff, but he ain't think that she was like into witchcrafty stuff. You know what I mean? So he pauses for a second. And the first thing he thinks about is, I definitely got to tell Blizzy about this. And he realized at that moment, like, I'm not messing with you. Like, yeah, okay. I'm easy. You got me. I came here. So you're right. That's my fault. But I don't have to keep doing it. So he packs his stuff. He don't even say nothing to her. Like, he packs his stuff and he leaves the hotel in the middle of the night. No explanation. He don't want nothing. Also blocked her off of everything. I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, well, maybe she anointed him. But why you anointed him in the back of his head? You could have just did it on his forehead. You know what I mean? And that's the same thought process he had. Again, he watches me. And I'm glad that y'all be watching me. Y'all be knowing. So far, he says everything's good. She's been trying to reach out, to him, though. She's pissed. Because I guess it looks like he just hit it and just left her in the hotel by herself in the middle of the night. After she done paid for the hotel and all that. Oh, she's definitely very upset. Now he's terrified. He's scared of what that means. Like, what did she do to him? Fortunately, I don't really give out help on the internet. Like, I don't, for legal reasons. Unless it's like through my ebook, or like a video that I make about it. But I don't personally like tell people what to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be responsible for nothing. So y'all let him know in the comments. Talk to him. What you think it is. Me personally, I really do think that she did do something, and I think that he should definitely go. He should pray. Or he can get my ebook. Grayson, you've been following me. Why didn't you think about that? Just get my ebook and you'll be fine. Okay? You do, and you do it. Make sure you send that story too. So I'm dropping a new song on Valentine's Day. Same song, but 2 different genres, dancehall and compa. Like, what artists do y'all know drop the same song in 2 different genres? Come on. Well, make sure y'all are following me on Instagram for all the music updates and stuff. And thank you for your support. I love you so much, bestie. I really do. I do. Okay, I'm going to stop being mushy. Bye. I love you.
Smoky Mountains are older than bones, literally. They're estimated to be between 300 and 400 million years old. They're older than the Rockies, the Alps, the Himalayas. They formed before the forming of the Atlantic Ocean. It's likely that at one point they were as tall as the Himalayas are today, but over millions of years, erosion wore them down into the rolling valleys and peaks that they're known for today. And that's why it's not surprising that there's so much lore and spooky stories that come out of the Appalachia region. In fact, I get so many stories from this region that I could probably do an entire mini-series just focusing on stories from Appalachia, but we'll just focus on this one today. This came from Holly, and she said that in June of 2024, she was having some problems with her partner. She's from North Carolina and wanted to get away, so she figured she'd take a quick weekend trip to a cabin in the Smokies, and she had been there before on weekend trips with friends, but never alone. But being familiar with the area, she wasn't nervous, and she found a booking on booking.com. For a nice little studio cabin, and it had a hot tub on the porch. It had a nice overlook of the mountains around it. Pretty much everything she was looking for. She said it was about $600 from her stay from Friday to Sunday, and she was eager to get going when Friday came around. So she already had a bag packed. After she left work on Friday, she headed straight for the mountains. The ride from the cabin from her house was about 2.5 hours, and she said she enjoyed the drive. She was excited. She actually didn't even tell her husband she was going because they weren't on speaking terms anyway, and she was just really looking forward to this time to have to herself. And so she gets to the cabin. There were some other cabins along the route up to where this cabin was, but it was secluded where it stood. And she said she checked in, she dropped her bags, and then she headed to a grocery store because she didn't intend to leave for the entire weekend. And the first night she was there was amazing. She said she cooked her favorite dinner, ate alone, took a bath, sat in the hot tub, drank some wine, watched TV, and eventually fell asleep. Next morning was an early start, but she woke up kind of sad. She said she cried and then just got along with her day. She decided to go downtown to all the little shops in Pigeon Forge, some lunch, and headed back to the cabin. And the day was kind of going along without a hitch. She was having another nice day by herself, and around 11 p.m. everything started to change. She said she was out on the front porch, sitting on the porch swing, and the woods were quiet, but she grew up in the woods. She's not afraid of them. She knows that you need to respect nature. She was just kind of sitting out there alone, thinking, when she heard a loud click, 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 and she noticed all the lights in the cabin went out. So she jumped up from her porch swing, ran inside, and tried to use her phone light to see. Slammed the door closed behind her and locked the deadbolt. She said this cabin had 2 points of entry, the front door and the back. One had the deadbolt, and the other had a keypad entry on the outside with an automatic locking mechanism. She tried not to panic, and she said she still had phone service, so she immediately got online and started looking up power outages in the area. And she had noticed when she checked into the cabin that the breaker box was on the outside of the house in view of the road, which she didn't like, but it wasn't a deal breaker when she was checking in. She couldn't find any information related to power outages in the area, so she just decided to sit in the living room for a little while. She did have a weapon on her, in case anybody is curious, but she said she was just waiting for a little while to see if the power would come back. But after a little while, it didn't. She just decided, you know what, I'm gonna go to bed. Hopefully the power will be back on in the morning. She's laying in bed, dozing off, when she hears footsteps on the wooden porch outside. And she said at this point, she sat up in bed and she was trying to convince herself that her mind was just playing tricks on her. But the footsteps outside seemed to be walking around the perimeter of the cabin, and they were actually making the stove inside the kitchen rattle. It sounded distinctly human, like 2 feet were walking, too small to be a bear or another large animal. She was still sitting in the silence, trying to convince herself that she was just hearing things, when she heard the front doorknob jiggle. The cabin was pitch black. She couldn't see anything except for what her phone light illuminated. But once she heard the doorknob jiggle, she ran to the kitchen and grabbed a large butcher knife out of one of the kitchen drawers. She turned her phone light off and went to the front window to look outside and see if she could see any movement or anybody out there, but all it was darkness. And as she's standing at the window, she hears the doorknob jiggle again. And at that point, she said she freaked out. She grabbed a dresser and moved it in front of the door. Back into the kitchen, she was panicking, but she did see a phone number on the side of the refrigerator, which had the maid and the maintenance person's number. She tried the maintenance person first, thinking maybe he's here, maybe he's trying to restore the power, but he didn't answer. So then she calls the maid, and the maid actually answers and informs her that she actually owns the cabin. She says, I don't know anything about a power outage in the area. And Holly's like, well, is the maintenance person maybe here trying to restore the power? And there's a pause, and the owner ends up telling her, no, the maintenance person's my boyfriend. He lives about 20 minutes away. He's not there. And Holly says, well, there's someone outside the cabin trying to get in. And at that point, the owner tells her, you need to call the police and I'm on my way. Holly hangs up and she immediately dials the police. She's standing in the kitchen, and as she's on the phone with the woman who answered the police line, she can hear movement on the other side of the kitchen wall. So she runs into the bathroom and locks herself inside. She said there were no windows inside the bathroom, so she was sitting alone in complete darkness with only the illumination from her phone. The person on the other end of the police line ends up telling her, oh, a tree fell in the area. That's why there's a power outage. We'll send someone out. And Holly starts convincing herself, okay, it's just in your mind. As she's sitting in the bathroom, she continues hearing the footsteps outside on the porch. Eventually, though, after about 15 minutes pass, she starts hearing the police sirens in the distance, and she starts feeling a little bit of relief. And she can hear the police get out of the car and start walking around. With them outside, Holly feels safe enough to leave, and she goes outside to greet the police officer, and that's when the owner of the property also pulls up, and they all start talking. They search the perimeter of the house, but don't find anything. The police say, oh, it's okay that you called us, but it was probably just an animal. They leave. And that's when the owner of the property ends up telling her something unsettling. She says, my grandmother used to own this property, and there were all kinds of strange things that would happen when she was renting it out. Like one night, the entire front door got kicked in. They never found any sign of people in the area, and we don't know who did it, but it was distinctly kicked in at the bottom of the door. Our cleaner of the property had reportedly quit after complaining about footsteps outside of the cabin every time she was there cleaning the inside when guests had left. And the owner of the property felt so bad about this that she ended up paying for Holly to go and get a hotel that night. Holly says she's not really sure what to make of that night, but it was one of the most deeply unsettling and scariest nights of her life. And the other thing that stands out in her mind that she didn't really think about until later was when she checked into the property using the lockbox, she noticed that the code was already put into the door. One of those types of manual lock boxes where you slide the metal levers to make up a certain code in order for the lockbox to pop open and get the key. Apparently that was already on the code that she was supposed to use, but she didn't think anything of it. She thought maybe the cleaners had made a mistake, and she got the key out and entered the house. But she said she's heard enough scary stories about things in the woods, and she knows to respect certain things. And for some reason, this felt like more of a warning than anything else. It felt like she was somewhere that she just wasn't supposed to be. She's grateful that nothing worse happened. So who do you think was trying to get into her cabin?
Hey guys, I wanted to jump on for a second and take a minute to check in with you guys, see how you all are. This is a spooky story, but not the spooky story you're probably expecting from my page. Wanted to take a minute to talk about the spookiest story, which is unfortunately reality for all of us right now. The world is in a scary place. The states are in a very scary place, and it's heavy. And I will be careful with how I word things. I do believe that a lot of our apps unfortunately censor things of this nature, and I don't want my voice to be suppressed, nor any of yours, especially not victims' voices. I think it is so important for us to band together as a community, as citizens right now, and to be lights for each other. And I want our voices to be catalysts for change right now. So just letting you know, if I'm not using certain words or certain names, it's for no other reason than I want to make sure that, that the little platform that I do have, that I'm able to use it, not just for entertainment purposes, but to talk about things that we should give a shit about. And I think that the vast majority of us do at this point give a shit. And if you don't, this is not the page for you, so kick that little can of corn further on down the road. I keep trying to think of what I want to say or how I want to say it, and I've been mulling this over for weeks now, but I still don't know, and I have no plan. I just have to say something, and I have to check in with you guys because I know how my mental space is right now, and I know that so many of us are feeling the weight of all this, the shock of it just as heavily. And I want this to be, as it's always been, a safe space for us to check in. And I genuinely care for you guys. I want to know how you are and what's on your mind, and I want us to be here for each other, because things that are this heavy and this traumatic, nobody should have to face alone or go through alone. And I don't know about your all's algorithms, but mine is consumed right now with the files being released, with what this administration is allowing to happen in our streets, to families, to children, citizens, immigrants, and finding out that our entire country, for God knows how long, is being run by traffickers, by people who take the lives of children, who harm children in the most vile ways you could imagine. And it's disturbing enough as it is. But as a mom of a 2-year-old, it hits a little different. If you've ever been a victim of SA, it's going to hit just a little bit different. And at the same time, I can still acknowledge my privilege, because at least I have the privilege to just read it on a piece of paper and to not have experienced it firsthand myself, like these thousands of victims have, these children and babies, these women and men. And because of that, as painful as it is to read, to look at, as much as I want to look away, I can't. I feel we owe it to these victims, to just human to human. We owe it to hear their voices, to give these victims a safe space to be able to finally speak their truth and tell their stories, because they've been silenced for decades by some of the most powerful men on the planet, and it's not fair. No accountability at this point would ever erase the trauma that they've been through, but it would finally recognize that trauma. And I think that is vitally important. And it is vitally important for the people who are responsible for these atrocious crimes to be held accountable. And accountability, it sometimes, the more and more that I look at this feed and I dive down these rabbit holes and I read into these files and I hear these victims' stories, and I see how deeply ingrained this web is into our society and our government, the more I want to think that accountability is just a shot in the dark, and it may never happen, but there's something in me that wants to believe in a safer future, not just for my son, but for your children, for all the children, a safer tomorrow. And I want to one day be able to tell my son that the parents of our generation, the grandparents, that we did everything as a country and as humans that we possibly could to bring justice to these victims and to change their futures, I don't even know what all I'm getting at here. It's really just a ramble. I just want you to know I love you. And if you are hurting, I'm hurting with you. And I'm sending you the biggest hug and the warmest cup of coffee and a good session on the porch like I'm having. You guys stay warm. And if you're like me and you feel, as much as it is painful to look at, that you can't look away and that you owe it to them, to hear their voices, remember that while it is so important for us to be informed, it is also so important for us to take care of ourselves and to take care of our mental health, because this stuff is traumatizing. If you need to put your phone down, if that means going outside to get air, calling a friend, watching some of our spooky stories, whatever you need to do, do that, and know that you are not alone in how you feel. I know it can be very isolating. I am Autumn in Appalachia. I live in the Bible Belt in a very MAGA heavy state, and that in itself makes things like this kind of feel like you are a lone fish in a sea, a very red sea. But we're going to get through this. We're going to get through it together. And if you guys want to start doing weekly check-ins or something like this, just where we all have a little safe space, we can do that. And our spooky stories, our regular content will of course continue, because it's even kind of a form of escapism for me, a little bit. I like being able to get out of my head for just a few minutes, and that's hard to do these days, right? But I love y'all. Again, I love y'all, and I hope you get some good sleep tonight. We need it.
Let's read another true and scary story. This one comes from Elena. I got a few fun but scary stories to share, some short ones and a long one. The long one is a bit disturbing, and I also have a picture of a demon that we took. Oh, I can't wait for this. This takes place at my grandparents' apartment. You know those typical creepy apartments you see in movies? This was exactly that. A few years before all this happened, their neighbor who lived above them had hung himself. Strange things were already happening back then, but nothing compared to what was coming. It really started when I was around 7 years old. My great-grandpa, my grandma's dad, passed away, and my grandma fell into a depressive episode. Not long after, the first really strange thing happened. They heard one short knock, then 2 knocks, then another short knock on the bedroom door. The same pattern repeated itself a couple of times. After that, doors started opening by themselves, but they brushed it off, blaming the wind or the apartment being old and kind of rotten. Then it escalated. Lights began flashing, and the nightlight would turn on and off by itself. Again, it was always blamed on electrical problems. They were definitely in denial. Things didn't stay small for long. My grandma started waking up with scratches and bruises all over her body. I was also told that every time I visited, I had a lot of bruises on my legs. People would say, "Oh, you're young, you're probably just crazy," but I was never that kid. I was calm, didn't do anything crazy, and definitely not enough to have half my legs covered in bruises. That's when my grandma decided to call my mom, who has always loved spiritual things, just like I do now. They started taking recordings and photos, and that's when they noticed a lot of orbs. Most of them appeared around my baby pictures and in the creepy hallway where the door always opened by itself. My mom even asked some Ghostbuster-type people what they were, thinking it could just be dust, but they were 100% sure they were orbs. In some of the photos, they also captured spirits, mostly in mirrors. In one picture, they even clearly saw my great-grandpa who had already passed away. The spirits seemed to know my grandparents, and once my mom showed interest, they reacted. And trust me, they liked it. Cabinet doors would fly open. Makeup products were thrown out of their drawers while my grandma was standing right there, watching it happen with her own eyes. There was also something hanging on the kitchen wall that was very secure. It already took effort just to pull it off, but one day it flew across the kitchen, almost hitting my grandpa on my mom's side. He never believed in spirits. He was always skeptical about that kind of thing, but even he was shocked and genuinely scared. One night, he woke up and saw an apparition of a woman, we think, or hope. Other times, objects would disappear completely, only to reappear later in the exact same spot they'd been left. I spent a lot of time there when I was younger. One day, we were playing hide and seek, just like in a horror movie, and I hid in their closet. I stayed there for about 5 minutes before coming out crying because I felt someone touching me, and trust me, it wasn't the clothes. I actually forgot about that moment until my mom reminded me years later. About 2 years ago, my mom and I were going through the photos again, and there was one picture taken in their living room that still haunts me. I'll try my best to describe it. In the living room, there's a very large mirror. On the wall connected to it, not directly across, but to the side, there's a small heart-shaped mirror. My mom pointed at it and said, "Look, you could see 2 spirits in there." I told her, "I don't think those are spirits, Mom." It was a demon. You can clearly see a skeleton-like head, partially looking upward, with what looks like a neck and an upper body on the left side of the heart mirror. The photo is attached to this email. It isn't photoshopped or edited in any way. This was also the first time I'd ever seen the photo, and my mom doesn't even know what Photoshop is. After all that, they staged the apartment and everything finally calmed down. Fast forward to now, they moved out of that apartment and lived somewhere else, and nothing else like that has ever happened again.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Okay, here's the original picture. And then I lowered the exposure and upped the contrast a little bit, and you could clearly see the skeleton face on the right side of the mirror. That is horrific. That's so scary. Oh my God.
Thank you so much, Elena, for sharing this one with me. I'm glad that your grandparents have moved out and are okay, because they definitely were living with some demons. As always, if you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can. And I will see you in the next one.
We listen, we don't get scared, and we don't judge. Let me tell you guys a story time of this hairstylist of mine from Mozambique who showed me her granddad that died, and I saw him in real time at my friend's Bozy. For those that don't know what a Bozy is where you stay. That's basically, it's easier than saying at your house. You get good. So at one time in my life, we stayed in Mpumalanga, right? And we moved to Gauteng, during at my later stages in primary school. I think grade 6, that's when I moved here. No, grade 7 actually. So there obviously are family members that are still there, right? So this one time I go to this family member to visit, and then I go play at this other Mozambican hairstylist. So we're there, most were talking, whatever, and her phone happens to switch on because there was a notification, right? How at that notification we're talking, and I say to her, yo, your boyfriend must be texting you, because this person kept on sending messages, right? And she was like, no, she doesn't have a boyfriend. And we're laughing because I could definitely tell that was her partner. So I swipe on the messages and I'm like, who's this? Is this your dad? Because this person looked like her, right? She was like, no, that's my that's my granddad. So she says she used to stay in South Africa with her granddad because she's from Mozambique, right? And they first were in Limpopo. So what happened is, one day this man went missing. The doors were locked. So they slept, right? Woke up and this man was gone. The doors were locked. The keys were in their place, so they don't understand what happened to this man. They waited and waited and waited, and he did not come back. Then they decided to ask for the community to help them search, and they started searching. They searched in the fields. They searched in the streets. They searched from probably, I think, around 6 p.m. till 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. Mind you, this is my hairstylist that's narrating the story. That's narrating the story to me. So she's like, they searched until 1 a.m. and they eventually got tired and everybody went home, right? So the following day, this man that herds cattle comes to their house and tells them that they found their granddad, because the person was, how in villages everybody knows everybody. When he saw the body of the granddad, he knew that, which house to go to. Gets to my hairstylist house, and they tell the family that, hey, we found the man here, blah blah blah. So, what was crazy is the fact that they went in groups of I think 6 people. All those groups passed that place. There was no body over there. And you know how forensics are the ones that are able to determine how long a person has been dead for. And, they were like, it seems like his body started to get cold, so it must have been a few days. And the family is like, has it been a few days when this person disappeared yesterday? So a lot of things were surrounding this death was crazy. Another thing was that there were no signs of fighting whereby he fought for his life. There were no signs of a bullet, but there was one somebody stabbed him on the shoulder, and it was not that deep to kill him. So they didn't know what was going on. They also didn't know. They couldn't explain, right? And they just let it go, because really, who are you going to ask? Because the man who herds cattle doesn't know what happened. He says he saw the body and immediately left his cattle, ran to these people's houses and told them what happened. When they went to a traditional healer, these traditional healers keeps on telling them that this person is alive.
this person is not dead. Mind you, you see a person in the coffin and the traditional healer tells you this person is not dead. Now it's giving, so I was like, damn, and she teared up a little bit, and I was like, I'm so sorry, man. I hope you find healing, this is not cute at all. Sharp. Come back to Gauteng. Now, fast forward, I come back to Gauteng, right? My visit is over, I'm back this side. Okay, me and this girl, right, who have been talking, here and there. Those people that you meet through people, and then all of a sudden when you guys see each other at the shops or wherever, you guys get to conversating. This one time she invites me to her house, right? Sharp. I think it was a Friday. I get to her house, I sit on top of the kitchen table, wait for her to go change her clothes. As I'm sitting on the table, this old man comes into the kitchen, sits down with a cup, and I look at him in shock. Because guess what? He looks like the man. He looks exactly like the man that I saw on my hairstylist wallpaper. That was him. No matter what, that was him. So I'm sitting there comfortably just looking at this man in so much shock. And he looks at me and he sips his tea. And he stares at me. And I eventually just act like I can't see him on some, hoping that my friend changes faster, because now I'm scared. Because I could feel that something is wrong here. So this man looks at me and then he's like, because I'm acting like I don't see him, he greets me and I keep quiet. And then he was like, there's no need to be scared of me. I know you know. In my head, I'm like, what do I know? And I'm just quiet, right? And he was like, I know you know. I know you know exactly what's going on. I know you know, so there's no need for you to fear me. Whatever you think happened is exactly what happened. Now, I was obviously thinking, damn, this man must have been turned into a ghost or a zombie or something. But if I can see him, that means something is wrong. So I was just sitting there quiet, and I'm just acting like I can't hear this man. And he keeps on telling me, I know you know, and it's okay. And he told me that I shouldn't say a word to the daughter because the daughter's going to tell the mom, and the mom is the person who did all of this. And I'm there shocked and acting like I can't hear him still. Baby girl comes out, and at least I now know that I wasn't the only one that sees this man. And she was like, Grandpa, you met my friend. That grandpa was so sweet, shame. And she hugged the granddaughter, and was like, you didn't tell me that you're bringing friends. I would have brought sweet for you guys, blah blah blah. The mom comes in, and the mom is literally like, great. They're all treating him nicely, but I'm just confused as to why would they zombieize you, because these people are treating you well. And usually from the stories that I've heard, people that have zombies never treat them well. They make them work for them, or maybe I don't know. And then there was this Sangoma guy, right, who came to do my mom's garden, right? He came to do my mom's garden, and me and him started having a conversation, right? We started having a conversation, and we were talking about ghosts and all of that. And I told him the story of how my hairstylist showed me this man. And then I went to my friend's house, and I saw the exact same man. And this guy was like, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Me and him have had a conversation before. So basically, the Sangoma told me that the reason why this man was turned into a zombie, is because this man was married, right? He was married to this other lady. He was married to my hairstylist's mother. Are you tracking with me? Hopefully you get me. He was married to my hairstylist's mother. And then my friend's mother is a child that was born out of promiscuity. It was a child that was born out of wedlock. So this man went on to cheat with my friend's grandmother. Are you understanding? With my friend's grandmother. And then my friend's mother was a product of that cheating. And then this man decided to discard this child and take care of his other kids and act like she doesn't exist. As she grew up, she was like, never. I will make sure that you are going to be a present dad in my life. And guess what? The lady decided to zombieize this man. Zombieize him, and I don't know how he became human. I don't know, but she zombieized him and was like, you are going to treat me like the daughter. You're going to give me the love that you never gave me. And so she did exactly that. Do you understand? And I asked the Sangoma guy, how does he know all of this? He's like, because he's been to that house before, and he has spoken to the man, and he knew that he was not really real, but he's real because we all can see him. And the man obviously told him the story of what happened. And, he was okay with the whole thing because really he felt like he needed to be part of my friend's mother's life because he wasn't. But at the same time, my friend's mother is the one that holds the key to him resting in peace. So he will continue suffering in this life until the mother is ready to let go and is like, you know what, now it's time, you can go and rest in peace. Do not ask me how it happened, I don't know, but yeah. And he's like, yeah, that's what happened. And I was talking to this guy, I was like, you? And he also told me not to tell my friend what I know, because she might go and tell her mom and it just might cause problems for me. And yeah, I am used to that man, by the way. Very much used to him. He's still very much alive, by the way. And I do talk to him, even though I know that, it's just faulty, but I can't say anything.
If you like spooky stories, you're gonna love this. This 911 operator claims that he took a call from a ghost that ended up saving a human's life. Check it out, I'm gonna go fast, here we go. As a 911 operator, you're nervous every time you take a call. These people are calling you at the worst moments of their lives, desperate for help. Best case scenario, you give them the help they need. Worst case, there's nothing you can do. You usually only take this type of job if you're out there to help people. And just after 2 a.m. can be the most busiest time for us. Intoxicated people making false claims and prank phone calls is an issue. Some people hang up before we even get a chance to see what's going on. These are the most dangerous. Because we have to be careful when we send out a unit to these calls, doing that we have limited manpower. This will all come into play and make sense shortly. It was around 2:45 a.m. when this call came in. I answered with my typical 911, what is your emergency? But I didn't hear anything initially. With almost every call, you're going to hear at least someone breathing or some sort of noise on the other end. In this case, there was only silence. After a few seconds of the call, our computer pulls up the information from the caller. Most calls that we receive are from cell phones, but this call was from a landline. The address that popped up for this call was on the outskirts of city limits at a home that would take us at least 20 minutes to get there at best. I didn't hear anything, so I was concerned that someone might be in trouble. I repeated myself in case they didn't hear me. 911, what is your emergency? Then on the other end of the line came a burst of static that was so loud it hurt my ears. The strangest damn thing, during the static, I could have swore I heard a woman asking for help. I leaned forward listening intently for any information I could get from this caller, only to find out the call just ended. My first instinct was to send officers and an ambulance to the scene. But the more I thought about it, the more I wondered if I was doing the right thing. After all, did I really hear the woman's voice asking for help, or was it all in my head? We are trained to err on the side of caution in these situations. So, I went ahead and sent him home. I sat myself back down in the chair and waited for my next call. It was a slow night, so it took about 20 minutes before the next one came in. But this time, before I even spoke, I heard someone weeping in the background. There was a young female on the other line with me, and it took me a few minutes to calm her down to get her story. She said her mother had collapsed in the living room and wasn't moving. And I noticed that this call was coming from a cell phone. So no information came up on the computer. When I asked the girl where she lived, she rattled off an address that seemed oddly familiar to me. It didn't take me long to figure out that this was the exact address from the call I just got 20 minutes earlier. I had to confirm the address twice. Both times she'd given me that exact location. When I asked her if her or her mother had made a call a little while ago from the house phone, she said no, this was the first call that had been made. And the really weird part is she also said that they only have cell phones and they don't have a house phone. Just after I made that final statement, I heard a loud bang in the background of the call. Then the girl says that the police are already there. Quickly, they rushed the mother to the hospital with signs of some sort of cardiac arrest. After I had a minute to relax and think, something was bothering me. I went back and brought up the call log from the first call that night. Yes, curiosity got the best of me, and I called that number back. The weird part is, the phone didn't even ring. All I got was a message saying that the number had been disconnected, or it was no longer in service. This was the point I started to freak out. It didn't seem possible that I received a call from a number that was disconnected. Never mind one that had an address that shortly later a woman would have a heart attack. So I went back and listened to the recording of the actual phone call. What I found super strange was the loud static noise was there, but it didn't pick up any woman's voice asking for help. To this day, I still have no idea exactly what happened that night, but that woman definitely had someone from the other side looking out for her. If you've had anything like this happen, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to discuss it. Possibly even do a video about it. Thanks.
The person who submitted the story says that she has never publicly told anyone about the story, but that if something were to happen to her, at least now everyone knows, like, her truth. For the sake of the story, let's call her Claudia. Claudia has been married for about 15 years to her husband, Romero. Together, they have a 13-year-old daughter named Camilla. As far as Claudia knew, her marriage was okay. One day, she happens to be at the grocery store when an old lady goes up to her and asks her for a coin. Claudia goes ahead and reaches into her purse and hands the old lady a coin. As she's handing the old lady the coin, the old lady grabs her by the wrist and holds on to her firmly, and then looks right into her eye and tells her, "Someone in your life is being deceitful. They are living a double life. When you're ready to talk, come find me. I can help you." Claudia had no idea what this old lady was talking about, but she kind of just politely pulled her hand back and just told the lady okay, and kind of just walked off. For whatever reason, those words stayed in Claudia's head, and that night after her husband Romero went to bed, she decided to go into her husband's office and kind of look through his files to see if she could find anything, when she comes across a lease to an apartment that's about an hour away. She's confused as to why her husband would have a lease to an apartment that's an hour away when they own a home. There's no reason for it. She tries to rationalize it and think that maybe he's helping out a friend, or she's thinking of all the possible scenarios, but she knows in the bottom of her heart that something's not right. The next day after her husband goes to work, she decides to go to the address that's on the lease. After she drives about an hour away, she decides to park about a block away from the apartment and walk the rest of the way. As she's making her way to the apartment complex, she sees her husband Romero walking out of the apartment complex holding hands with another woman. She says that she doesn't really know what came over her. She says the minute she saw this, her whole body went numb, and it was almost like her brain couldn't comprehend what it was seeing, and she started walking in a bunch of different directions, trying to find her way back to her car, and before she knew it, she fainted. When she came to, there was a bunch of people gathering around her, asking her if she was okay. Claudia got up and kind of brushed herself off as much as she could, and she told them that she was fine, and she hurried back to her car. When her husband Romero got home later that day, she confronted him, and he automatically admitted it. He told her that he no longer loved her, that he has not been attracted to her in years, and that he wants a divorce. That very next day, Romero moves out and moves into the apartment with the other woman, leaving Claudia to kind of fend for herself. She had never really had a stable job, I guess. She had been a stay-at-home mom all those years, and he pretty much left her with the weight of all the responsibilities of caring for a home. She decided to file for child support and go after him for alimony, which is when the harassment started from his mistress, Valeria. One night, Claudia's getting ready for bed when she receives a phone call from an unknown number. When she picks up, it's the mistress, Valeria. Valeria is laughing hysterically, calling Claudia a bunch of different names, saying that she's lazy, that she needs to get a job, that it is not Romero's job to support her anymore, that she was no longer the wife, that Valeria was going to be the new wife. She then said that they were going to get full custody of Camilla, leaving Claudia completely by herself. Claudia decided not to answer and not to even engage in anything that this woman had to say. She just stayed quiet and then hung up the phone. Weeks go by and Claudia starts to really struggle financially. The only job she can find are little side jobs where she's selling fruits and vegetables on the side of the road. She's not really able to find a very good stable job, and Romero uses this to try to get full custody of Camilla. It's getting to a point where she's thinking that she's going to lose custody of her daughter because she's not able to prove that she can financially take care of her. This is when she remembered the old lady, the encounter she had with the old lady at the supermarket, and how the old lady told her that if she ever needed her, to come find her. So desperate and not really thinking that she had much other options, she decided to go to that grocery store to see if she would come across that old lady. And she did. Without much conversation, the old woman already knew why Claudia was there. She went ahead and asked her for a photo of Valeria, which Claudia had. One thing I forgot to mention is that not only was Valeria calling Claudia and harassing her, she was also texting her nonstop and sending her photos of Valeria with Romero just to mess with Claudia. So Claudia shows the old woman a photo of Valeria. The old woman just looks at it, puts her hand over it, and says, "Don't worry, I will take care of the rest." She handed Claudia a small little black satchel filled with herbs and told Claudia to put this under her pillow and that everything would be okay afterwards. Everything seems to calm down for a couple of weeks. Claudia actually ends up finding a job. She's working at this coffee shop, making some good money, when one day Valeria storms into the coffee shop and starts verbally coming after Claudia. Apparently Romero had left Valeria. He told her he didn't want to be with her anymore, that he wanted to get back with his wife, which was news to Claudia because she didn't know. She's minding her business. But Valeria's coming after Claudia, thinking Claudia has something to do with it, but it was just Romero pretty much coming to his senses, being like, I don't want you anymore. I want to get back with my wife. Valeria sat there and screamed and berated Claudia so much at the coffee shop in front of all these people that Claudia snapped. She went after Valeria. She pulled her hair and she smacked her twice, really, really hard. At this point, her manager gets involved. She splits them up. She tells Claudia that she needs to go home, and she tells Valeria that she needs to leave the coffee shop. She's not welcome there. Claudia goes home and tries to get her mind off of it. Valeria, apparently after she left that coffee shop, she crashed. She was so enraged that she must have not been paying attention to the road, and apparently she crashed into a pole. Romero actually calls Claudia and tells her that Valeria had gotten in a car accident and that she was not paralyzed from the waist down. Then tells her that he regrets leaving the home, that he wants to come back, but that now that Valeria is in the state that he's in, that he has to stay with her, he has to help her. He can't walk away from her now. After Valeria got out of the hospital, she continued to harass Claudia any chance she got. No matter how many times Claudia would block her, somehow Valeria would find a way to get a hold of Claudia, and she would keep sending her really nasty messages and photos and just being horrible to her. Then one day Valeria passed away. According to mutual friends, Claudia heard that Valeria was going insane toward the end, towards the last couple of days that she was alive. She kept screaming, saying that she can see an old lady standing in the corner of the room waiting for her, taunting her, bullying her. Claudia believes that old lady was that old lady that she came across at the grocery store, because when they described her, they described the old lady to Claudia, it fit the description of the old lady. After all of that took place, Claudia actually ended up going back to school, and she received a degree in finance. Her daughter is now in college and is doing extremely well. Financially, Claudia is also doing well. Romero and her have absolutely nothing to do with each other. If anything, Romero barely even comes around to even keep up with his own daughter. But what Claudia fears is that somehow this will all come back to her, because essentially she did brujeria on Valeria, and then Valeria's, and now Claudia's thriving. So she's worried that one day that old lady's gonna come back to collect.
One of the most interesting parts of my gift is that I get to speak to spirit whenever I have this feeling. And recently I've been doing a lot of EVPs because it's easier to capture when I get the feeling that spirit is trying to talk to me. And for a very long time, I would ignore my gifts and I would get super sick, right? But this recent EVP, the one I was telling you about, the look for Tam in the other video, was interesting because I literally said to spirit, I need to sit with you once a week and try to communicate better with my spirit guides, etc., etc. And it literally answered back, it's only fair. And when I heard it, I was like, y'all ain't shit. Why are y'all making me feel worse now? Because back then, before I lived with my brother, I had routines, complete rituals that I would do every week to communicate with my spirit guides, etc., etc. What I find interesting about any of my EVPs is there is a particular voice, a tone from a male. He has been around forever. So to me, he's a guide. Forever. Every single EVP I've ever had, it's either him or a woman. All the time. I remember at one point I was doing therapy in 2020, and my therapist was like, do you have the TV on? I'm like, no, why? And she's like, okay. And we're still talking, and she's like, no, seriously, do you have the TV on? I was like, I don't have the TV on. She's like, there's nothing on in the background. I'm like, no, it's just me and you, and my daughter's in her room. Okay. And I said, I have a feeling that she hears something. So I was like, can you tell me what you're hearing? Because there's nothing. And she's like, do you have the air on? No, I don't ever turn on the air, especially if it's cool. I didn't even have it on. I was like, no, the air's off. And so she was like, okay, this is so weird. There's been a few times that when I talk to you, I can clearly hear a man and a woman talking in the background as you're talking, like they're interrupting you. Mind you, this man and woman have been around for years. I have had from ex-boyfriends to family members to friends even say, who's behind you? Or why is the TV so loud? And I'm like, no, I don't have anything. Or, no, nobody's here. And they'll say, I hear a man talking, or I hear a woman talking, or I hear a man and a woman talking behind you. And I'm like, I'm by myself. So yeah, these particular spirits have been around for a very long time, and I have been accused of lying about these spirits. I have captured them on EVP, mainly the male. This time I got both. But I don't know what she's, I feel like she's foreign or something. Because the few times that she speaks, the few times that she speaks in the EVP, I don't understand what the fuck she's saying. So I'm gonna have to learn a little bit more. But yeah, this year I made it a point to be more ritualistic like I used to be. So let's see what happens. Maybe it'll develop me better. It'll get things better. If you want, I can insert the thing in the It's Only Fair clip. It's very hard to understand that it's saying that. So I don't really like to use EVPs too much in my clips, because unless it's super clear or you have supersonic ears like me, you're probably not going to hear it. So yeah. And I uploaded the video of the Look for Tam. I actually have that clip enhanced, and it sounds a lot better. It's on my BoobTube channel. If you want to hear that clip. But I'll insert it here and see if maybe you can hear it. I don't know. Maybe you hear what I hear. But my daughter heard it and my man heard it, and they were like, they're trying to tell you to get your ass back in that garage and get to work, girl.
This is absolutely terrifying. There are so many missing person stories out there, and most of them are never solved. And stories like this make you freaking wonder. So this guy tells this story. We're going to call him Matt. He said that a little while back, he lived in the middle of nowhere, way out in Oklahoma. He said that anytime he had to go outside of the house in the night, he'd always take a machete or something similar with him due to the coyotes or the other wild animals in the area. So on one night, he had to go take the trash out, so he grabbed a machete. He said it was near midnight, and the trash can was 50 feet away from the home, and it was surrounded by bushes and shrubbery. So he puts the trash in the can, and then he turns around to make his way back, and something reached out from the shrubs and latched onto his ankle. Now, at first he thought he caught himself on a branch or something, so he pulled it harder and looked down. And oh my God, guys, he said there were fingers wrapped around his ankle. And then he said they were far too long to have been human. So he swung his machete at whatever it was that was grabbing him. And he said he heard the most guttural, gut-wrenching scream he has ever heard. So he books it back to the home, and he mentions that he was living in a trailer park at the time in one of those shipping container shaped trailers. Now he says the thing about those is along the bottom, if there's just one little opening around the edges, animals might be able to get in there and get trapped. He said he heard that thing underneath the floor all night long. It sounded almost like a really big dog or something was under there. He said that the next day he went out and he didn't see any signs of anything, and he never really did find out what that was. But guys, what in the heck was that? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you have a creepy story of your own, please let me know. I would love to hear about it. And if you're new here, definitely follow for more creepy story time.
Spooky stories with evidence, and when I tell you the picture to this story, just wait. So this girl says that she didn't capture this picture, but her dad and his co-workers did. Her dad is a paramedic and he works the overnight shift. They end up getting a call around 2 in the morning because there was a really bad accident involving multiple cars. So while they're there and trying to help the people, the dad's co-worker accidentally hits like the camera button on his phone and he takes a picture. It wasn't intentional, it was just an accident and it happened in the middle of them helping the people out. Later on, when they were back at work, they had already helped the people, they looked at the picture and they were all shook. They obviously start showing the picture to all of their coworkers and their coworkers did not believe them. They said that they must have edited this, like this was not a real picture. He insists that the picture was real because it was accidentally taken. He didn't even mean to take the picture and it definitely was not edited. Every single one of them has been asking themselves this question that they have never gotten an answer to. What is a little girl by herself doing on the side of the road at 2 in the morning? This is the picture that the dad's co-worker accidentally took as they were trying to help the people in the accident. I don't know why this picture just gives me really bad vibes. It could just be me that I'm scared because of the whole story and the picture thing. Unfortunately, I will be giving you a closer look. Why are her eyes glowing like that? But I'm not gonna lie, it does look like a little girl. I could see hair, I could see eyes, I can even see like a white kind of top from right here and it gets dark right here. What do you guys think?
You see, if one day your bro calls you and he went like, bro, we should low-key explore this abandoned cemetery, just say no and end the call unless you want to be traumatized forever. It all started with a group of 4 friends who lived in Alabama. You see, one night, these friends wanted to visit a place called the Adams Grove Cemetery. This was a cemetery that was very known, especially by the locals, and it's known for a reason. It's known for being haunted. Like, yes, if you ask somebody from Alabama what's the place that you should avoid there is a high chance that he will tell you, avoid the Adams Grove Cemetery. So all this talks about a cemetery really got the friends intrigued, okay? They wanted to see by themselves if this place is worth the hype or not. So after all this talk, the friends got ready. They waited until midnight because it's more enjoyable like that, and then they finally went in. The first thing they realized when they went in was the fact that the graves were not organized. You see how in different cemeteries, every grave is like horizontally aligned with the other one? Well, here that was not the case. In this cemetery specifically, the graves are more like randomly put around the woods and they are surrounded by huge trees. This right here gave it more of a scary look. Even the friends admitted that they were not used to see this. Anyway, they kept exploring and this is where the friend group started to be divided. Not literally, but like in the way they think. If you remember well, they were a group of 4 friends, okay? Well, 2 of them came here specifically to check the graves. You know, they wanted to see the details about the graves and the people buried here. You know, how they look like, the names, the date of birth and all that. Meanwhile, the other 2 didn't give a shit, okay? They're like, bro, rest in peace to everybody who's buried here, right? But we did not come here for that. We're not checking graves, it's not fun. We just came here for the love of the game. We want that adrenaline rush and then boom, we're gone. So obviously the other 2, you know, the ones checking the graves didn't agree with them. They told them that they can do whatever they want. They can look around as long as they don't go too far. So this is where the group got separated. The ones who were not interested in the graves, well, they kept walking. And while doing that, one of them noticed the light from very far. When he noticed that, he told his bro who was next to him and they both got closer to see what was the source of it. When they got close enough, they both noticed that it was a man and the light was actually a flashlight that he was holding. So here, these 2 had 2 options. In this situation, they either walk around, pretend like they never saw him and leave the cemetery, or interact with him. They both silently agreed that they should interact with him. And the reason why they did that, well, because they were like, okay, this has gotta be some explorer. You know, he's exploring the cemetery just like us. And even though he's some crazy guy, we're beating the shit out of him. So we should walk nicely and basically do this. Wave at him so he can see us. And that's exactly what they did. They both went closer, they raised their hand and then they waved so he can see them. And he actually did, and then he waved back. This is where the 2 were like, okay, he's probably chill. Let's just do our thing and, you know, keep an eye on him just in case. So the 2 kept walking, pretending like they were minding their business. In reality, they were not, okay? They were keeping an eye on him, trying to not lose him. After a short while of doing this man who just stood here actually talked, more like screamed, okay? He said, it is really nice out here. After he said that, the two friends looked at each other. Without saying a word, they immediately understood the assignment. They should get the fuck out of there because this is not a human. They immediately started running, trying to join the other two and then get the hell out of here. And one of them, while they were running, looked back and this man is just standing, not moving at all. He joined the other two who are still checking the graves and they told them to hurry up, there is no time to explain. They got out of the cemetery, made sure they're far enough, and then they started talking to each other. Two friends started explaining what they saw, and the other two, the ones checking the grave, did not believe them at all. They were basically in complete disbelief, saying stuff like, bro, if he's not human, then what is he? Well, this is where they both explained that his voice did not sound human at all. It sounded like somebody who's trying to imitate a human. That was a thing that they both agreed on. The voice was really weird, but there were other things. One of them noticed that he was not moving a lot, and I mean, okay, everybody noticed that, but he also noticed that he was moving like a robot. He was having a hard time moving, and when he did it, it didn't feel human. The other one noticed that he was trying so hard to blink, but he couldn't. Like he had his eyes wide open, looking at one direction, and when he tried to blink, he couldn't. He was either closing one eye or, really struggling, trying to close both. Even though the ones who were checking the grave did not completely believe them, they were like, bro, you just got freaked out. It's probably a normal person. The other two completely promised that what they saw was not human.
You can't make this stuff up. Might have known the story of real-life boogeyman.
Let's read another scary Reddit story. Okay, guys, so I grew up in a house built in 1860 in upstate New York with zero problems. We bought this fixer-upper house here in Virginia right before COVID. It was built in the 80s. And let me tell you, I love scary stories, but have never encountered so many creepy things as I have in this house. First of all, 2 years ago, I was nursing my son at about 2 a.m. in our bed. My boyfriend always seemed to wake up with me and the baby during his infant days and would just keep us company on his phone while our son ate. We were both very awake this night, just chatting a little, and the dogs were sleeping in the living room. Suddenly, we hear the dog's feet on the wood floors and excited panting. Mind you, these are dogs who usually bark if someone enters the house who doesn't live there. Then we both hear a man's voice mumbling in our kitchen, as if he is greeting our dogs. My boyfriend looks at me shocked and then springs up to check as I am petrified. He sees nothing in the entire house. The next occurrence happens a few months later. I am alone in our large bedroom, just putting things away and tidying up before getting into bed. As I turn off the light switch, my boyfriend walks into the room. So he passed right by me. I didn't look straight at him, but I greeted him while turning down the covers. No answer. Still sidetracked with plugging in my phone and such, I ask him if he is going to bed, as he was over on his side of the bed, just standing. No answer. I still wasn't looking at him. He likes to joke around with me, so I straight up asked, "Are you mad at me or fucking with me right now?" As I finally look up, he ducks down by his side of the bed, and I seriously just thought he was picking up some shit our son had thrown down there or something. I asked the same question again, and then my actual live boyfriend walks into the room and goes, "Who are you talking to?" I had chills over every inch of my body, and he just shook his head like, "You're nuts, girl." Since then, there's been a few smaller things that have happened. My son's toy went off in the living room once with nobody around it. And one morning my boyfriend came home from night shift and our laundry basket was in the middle of the kitchen. He thought I had moved it there before bed, but I assured him I had no reason to. The reason I'm writing this now is I was just cooking in the kitchen and heard whistling behind me. And earlier today I heard a human adult cough upstairs. I am freaked out, especially with my boyfriend working nights. Any feedback? This is one of the stories that's going to be on my next podcast episode, which comes out on Sunday. So make sure you're following my podcast so you can listen to the rest of the stories, because this is a good episode.
The Pacific Northwest has this set of rules. Now, you have to understand, this is a very supernatural place. There is something in those woods. And when you go out there, you're entering into another realm. Things can and do happen. People disappear. And a lot of people have had strange experiences in the Pacific Northwest. Now, the first rule of the Pacific Northwest is that you never go into the woods alone. Whether it's night or day, you do not go out there without another person, because there's stuff in those woods that tries to lure you, that tries to draw you in. The second, if you're camping out in those woods, you need to last till dawn, because it's believed as long as you have a fire. The other thing with camping in those woods is it's always suggested that you set your tent up facing the north. You always want to be facing the North Star because it's believed as protection energy. Now, the third rule, right? If you hear, you see, you feel anything, you didn't. If you hear your name being called, if you hear music, if you hear singing, right? That is not real. Do not go towards it. The fourth rule, right? If you see an orb of light, you do not follow it. It will try and lure you into the woods. You will think, what is that? That's real. Do not follow it. The fifth rule, right? A lot of people say when they walk through the Appalachian woods, they've encountered what they describe as some kind of portal. And it will beckon you, it will call you to come into it. But you must never, ever go near that. You need to run away. Now, the last rule, anytime you go into the Pacific Northwest, you bring a pocket, bring one hold. And if something negative comes your way, there are two options. Now, this is a story that comes out of the Pacific Northwest in Northern California near Mount Shasta. There was this girl, and she said her father, Douglas, he went out on a hunting trip, and he went somewhere near Mount Shasta. Now, he had gone on these trips many times before, never had any issues. This particular time, he goes to this new area in the woods to hunt for deer. Well, he said the first thing he noticed when he was going through the woods is that there was no wildlife. He didn't see a single deer. He didn't see any squirrels or, even insects. It was just completely quiet. So that night, he sets up his tent and he makes this big, huge fire. Eventually gets tired, he goes to bed. Well, he said he awoke to something shaking his tent. And the next thing he knows, he hears people talking all around him. And he said it was just coming from the woods, like people were having full-on conversations. So he unzips his tent, he goes outside, and he notices his campfire is out. And he starts hearing noises like going through the woods. And he said that's when he's seen all of these people just walking aimlessly around the woods, around his campsite. And he said they all had their head down. They looked very out of place. And that's when he runs over to his tent. He goes inside and he grabs his firearm and he just starts, hoping for the morning. He wakes up and he says, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm done hunting. Like, this is it. So he packs up his gear and he starts heading out. As he's walking this trail back to his car, he said he just got this really weird feeling. And all of a sudden in front of him, he starts to see this foggy mist start almost appearing in what looks like a perfect circle. And to him, it looked like some kind of portal. And he hears a voice calling his name, telling him to come. And he starts to feel himself moving closer and closer to this portal. And he said, he could tell that if he were to go into this thing, he knew that he wouldn't come back, that something was going to happen to him, but he couldn't control himself. He was just so interested in this thing. Finally, he snaps out of it and he takes off running down this trail back to his truck. And he gets out of there and he tells his wife and his daughter about what happened to him. 3 months after this, he's driving down the highway. When he's going over the bridge, he has a terrible accident. The car flips and he passes away. Now, his daughter, she believes still to this day, whatever he encountered out there in the woods had something to do with it.
This is literally the most interesting haunted house story that I've come across. This igloo-shaped hotel sits between Fairbanks and Anchorage, Alaska. This was a passion project for a man in the 1970s. They were really looking to get more tourism in this area, and when they were asked why he would build an igloo-shaped hotel in Alaska, he said that, well, you wouldn't build one in Kansas or in Egypt, which, valid. This hotel was supposed to have 48 guest rooms, a bar, a restaurant, a gift shop, and a spa. So he got to work on this massive building. It is huge. You can see it up in the air. Planes can see it up in the air as far as 30,000 feet. But as time went on, he was not able to bring this building up to code, and he tried working on it slowly all the way until the 1990s, but was unable to get it done. So eventually he sold it, hoping that someone else would take over his dream project. Nobody was able to bring this building up to code so that it could be a hotel, and eventually it was left abandoned. Today, the building sits completely abandoned. It's boarded up. Even the RV park that is next to it is abandoned. There is nothing going on here. But what's creepy about this place is the supposed hauntings that go on. People have driven by in the middle of the night or when it's dark outside and have noticed that all of the lights in this building are on, even though there is no electricity to the building. When they turn around to go check it out, the lights are suddenly off. People have also reported seeing a woman dressed in white in one of the windows, even though nobody's supposed to be here. But the haunting itself isn't explained. Like, nobody knows why it would be haunted or what exactly is going on here. Honestly, this was just such an interesting story to me. I had to share it. So what are your thoughts on this? Let me know down in the comments and follow for more spooky things.
I need to tell you guys this ghost story. I think I saw death. Yesterday, on my drive to work, I had an encounter that I cannot stop thinking about, and honestly, it shook me in a way I can't explain. I was driving through a very rural part of Ireland, the kind of place where there's nothing around for miles. No footpaths, no bus stops, no houses, no reason for anyone to be standing on the side of the road unless their car had broken down. And even then, it wouldn't make sense where I was. As I approached a roundabout, something caught my eye. There was a man standing just off the road. He was tall, around 6 feet, and had a medium build. His appearance was immaculate. Dark skin, facial hair that was perfectly trimmed and shaped, and his hair was in neat braids pulled back like a ponytail. And this is most important. He was striking. I am a lesbian, and even I clocked it immediately. But something was off. He was dressed entirely in black. Not just black clothes, perfectly matching black. His jeans weren't faded at all. You know how black clothes usually go gray after a few washes? These didn't. Every layer was the exact same deep shade, like they'd never been worn before. It was absolutely lashing rain, pouring, and yet his hood was down. He was staring directly at me. The moment our eyes met, my stomach dropped. And I mean dropped. I felt sick instantly, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up straight. It was a full body reaction, pure fear. But I just couldn't understand why. He wasn't threatening. He wasn't moving towards me. He wasn't doing anything. As my car moved past him, he didn't turn his body. Only his head moved, slowly, smoothly, just enough to keep his eyes on me as I passed. His expression never changed. Completely blank. No emotion at all. The strangest part is he didn't feel human. I know how dramatic that sounds, but it's the only way I can describe it. It felt like I had seen something I wasn't supposed to see, like I'd crossed paths with something that wasn't meant for me. The fear didn't make sense. There was no logical reason for it. I wasn't in danger, but my body reacted like it knew something that my brain didn't. Ever since then, I haven't been able to shake the thought that maybe I didn't just see a man. Maybe I saw death. And here's the thing, I never thought of death as something terrifying. I've always imagined him as a guide, a presence that arrives when your time is up. Not to hurt you, but to help you move on. So maybe that's why I was so afraid. Because deep down I knew my time wasn't up, which makes me wonder, if he wasn't there for me, then who was he waiting for?
You know, at night when you have to turn the lights off in your house and you get to that last light and you switch it off and it's completely dark and it feels like all of a sudden your house has now become the most haunted house in the world and you have to make a run all the way back to your bedroom. There might be something to that. Now, when we are doing this, right, we put ourselves in a vulnerable position. And I think anything negative, any kind of spirit that is a negative entity knows this. This is the best time to scare us. And they're trying to see if they could scare us just a little bit to gain entry and to allow them permission to come into our lives. So this is a story I heard out of Rockford, Illinois. There was this girl and she lived in this bigger house all alone. And it started to get late. She wanted to go to bed. So she starts going through her house, turning off all the lights. She gets to the last light, which is in the living room, and when she hits it off and it goes completely dark, she gets that feeling. Well, she walks through her living room, and as she walks past her kitchen, she turns and kind of glances in, and she sees a woman, like in a white gown, just standing in the kitchen. And she's like, "Who are you? What do you want?" And the woman just starts walking towards her. So she takes off running to her bedroom. She closes her door, locks it, and she calls the police. The police show up, and she says, "Come inside, like there's a woman in my house. I'm in my bedroom, locked in there. I don't want to come out." So they go through her house, they search it, they don't find anyone. And they said, "Ma'am, are you sure you didn't just see something? Like, are you just tired and maybe there was like a hallucination?" And she goes, "No, I'm for sure there was a woman in my kitchen." So they said, "Well, we can't find anything. You probably are just tired. Why don't you just go to bed?" So they leave, and she goes back up to her bedroom. And when she lays down in bed, she kind of feels like, you know what, maybe that was just, in my head. Maybe I'm just tired and I need to get some sleep. So as she turns around to adjust herself in the bed, there is the woman standing right next to her. And she jumps up, she runs out of her house, and she said as she's in the front of her house, she can see the woman looking out of her window, staring at her.
Weird spooking dating stories. A few years ago, I had just gotten home from work and decided to look for a girl on Tinder to go out with that night. It was around 7 p.m. on a Friday. I matched with a girl whose profile mentioned smoking trees, so I started a conversation about that. A few minutes after talking, she told me she really liked smoking tree and that day she hadn't had any. Since she lived near my neighborhood, I decided to invite her out that night to go eat something, drink some beers, and later smoke some tree in my car. She accepted and sent me her WhatsApp number and her location, which was about 3 kilometers from my house. I took a shower, changed my clothes, got in the car, put her location into the GPS, and headed toward her place. It took me a while to find her on the street, but after a few attempts, I saw her talking to a friend on the sidewalk. I honked, she recognized me, and she got in the car. Boy, don't honk at a girl! After she got in, I tried to start a conversation, but strangely, she didn't say anything at all. I was basically talking to myself the entire time. She would rarely say okay or nod her head in agreement, and that was it. At the time, I thought, well, she must be shy. No problem. I took her to a snack bar. I tried talking to her while we were eating, but again, she didn't say anything. She just ate in silence. Eventually, I gave up and stopped talking too. Okay, I understand anxiety, but when you're the only one talking, that's too much. That's exhausting. After eating snacks and drinking some beers, still in complete silence, I invited her to smoke a joint in my car. She said, "Okay," and we drove to a deserted street where I parked. We sat in the back seat and smoked together. At the time, I thought, I hope this helps her relax and maybe she'll start talking. After a few puffs, she looked more relaxed, but she was still quiet. Eventually, we kissed and in the car. That's when things got weird. While we were having Shreks, she started behaving strangely and honestly scared me a little. She stared directly into my eyes with a weird, angry expression, as if she wasn't the same person anymore. Are you with a damn succubus? What's happening? At the time, I just thought she was really high or something, and since I was also high, I didn't think too much about it. I would have thought even more about it because I do that when I smoke. After that, I dropped her off at the same place where I had picked her up. I think her house was on that street, and then I went home. The next day, when I was sober, I kept thinking about her facial expression in the car, and I realized how strange it was. She grabbed my head with both hands and stared into my eyes with this bizarre, angry look. Her eyes were wide open, and her mouth looked like she was kind of smiling. I decided to follow her on social media, Instagram and Facebook, to learn more about her. Most of her posts were really random and strange. For example, she posted a lot of pictures of cardboard sheets with random phrases written in very broken English. We're from Brazil and we speak Portuguese, so it stood out. Some of the phrases were like, "I love, where you, heart our God, us kill him? Where will us? We continue. Each sheet was full of strange, disconnected sentences like that. One day, she started posting a lot of her personal life on Instagram stories. She talked about having a baby that she loved, about enjoying returning to Umbanda, an African-influenced religion that's common in Brazil, and about being happy to talk again with her grandmother, who was already passed. Then she said something that made everything click. She claimed that whenever she got high, she became possessed by the spirit of her grandmother and that she actually enjoyed it. Wait, does that mean you and the grandma? Ugh. That's when I connected the dots and realized she was probably under the influence of her grandma's spirit the night we met. After that, she started posting pictures of her face that looked genuinely disturbing, like she was possessed. In one photo, her jaw was wide open as if it were broken, and her eyes were completely white. It sent chills down my spine when I saw it. After seeing all of that, I decided to unfollow her on social media and blocked her number so she couldn't contact me anymore. I don't know if she was making all of this up, but honestly, I wasn't interested in finding out. I'm so glad you blocked her because that's some weird stuff. Whether it was true or not, that's weird. And I would be so freaked out if I was like doing the deed with somebody and they got really weird, like their entire personality changed. I don't know. That was really creepy. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, or if you have a weird, spooky dating story, send it my way.
Within minutes of taking this selfie, she'd vanish into thin air. It was a single strand of hair in a stranger's car that helped police piece this puzzle together. It was the 16th of March 2012 in Morgan Hill, California. Sierra Lamar was a beautiful 15-year-old girl. She was just about to head to school. She was just an absolutely lovely girl. You can really see how she just had so many friends because she was intelligent, she was pretty, she was really, really kind. She was a cheerleader. She lived this life that most girls would only ever dream of. And that morning was like any other morning. Sierra got up, she had her breakfast, she put her makeup on, and she took a little selfie before she went to the bus. But it was on her way to the bus that she seemingly vanished into thin air. No one had any idea why she didn't show up at school that day. I mean, she'd been texting her friends that morning and she didn't mention feeling unwell or anything. And it wasn't until 6 p.m. that her mum realized she never even showed up for school and she hadn't been seen all day. And she was a mixture of emotions. She was like angry that she hadn't been informed. She was also very confused, and then she was extremely worried. And it wasn't too long before somebody spotted a clue. It was Sierra's phone. It looked like it had just been flung into the grass on a local field. And some people were like, oh my god, this immediately tells me that foul play is involved. Like, why would her phone be on the grass? And then other people were saying, well, maybe she just got lost and like maybe she just dropped her phone. But then her Juicy Couture handbag was found at the side of the road with neatly folded clothing inside. Like, this couldn't have been a coincidence. It just happened by accident. She's not just flinging her belongings everywhere on her route to school. Then locals got wind that Sierra's own dad was actually a convicted S-offender, and the rumour mill started going wild. Missing girl, S-offender dad is not looking good. But he was actually ruled out pretty early on by police, and everybody was back to square one. Time ticked on and on with absolutely no answers as to where the hell Sierra could have vanished to. Every single day of school, her desk just remained empty. And it sat that way for the rest of the school year. Then there was a breakthrough. The forensic team found that DNA from her belongings matched 21-year-old Antolin Garcia Torres. Now, his DNA was on their database already because he was already a known dangerous criminal. He'd got previous charges, including felony battery. But police couldn't show their hand too soon. They knew that they needed to lie low and collect evidence so that he didn't just run. So they secretly watched and waited and recorded his every move. And after 2 months, they'd finally got enough to arrest him. Turned out his car had been caught on CCTV the morning that Sierra had vanished, and inside of that car, police found her DNA and a single strand of her hair. Many people mistakenly think, like, no body, no crime, you can't be done for murder if there is no body. You can. After an agonizing 3-year hunt in 2015, the search for Sierra was tragically stood down. But a jury did find Antolin guilty of her murder. He was also chillingly found guilty of attempted assaults on 3 women in various car parks. Turned out he'd used a stun gun. What a psychopath, to stun these poor ladies and try and overpower them. But he wasn't very smart because he accidentally dropped it and left his fingerprints for police to find. We can only really guess what happened to Sierra and where she could be. To this day, he refuses to reveal where her body is, but thankfully he did get life without the possibility of parole.